Wen Pal, I think that's Real Vision. I was on before, and at some point we'll ping him and play around with him. Did Epstein kill himself? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I've been asked this question a few times, and my opinion is that Epstein worked for an intelligence agency. He worked for them since the 1980s, and he had a very particular job, which was compromise. So he had a good gig. They put him up and gave him lots of money to live an exorbitant lifestyle and pretend to be a rich hedge fund guy. And then his job was to get rich, powerful people to go sleep with underage girls, record it, and then use the compromise to influence policy. There's just no reality where a rando can just have relationships with Prince Andrew and Bill Clinton and Donald Trump and Bill Gates and hundreds of other people in academia and policy and convince a lot of them to go and get compromised. And all of his rooms were wired up for sound. When it became clear that he was using young girls for this, he suffered no consequences for a long period of time, and he acted as if he was a made man. And then at the very end of his life, circumstances changed, and like all assets of intelligence agencies or inconvenience, he was cut loose, and he knew he was going to die. And then suddenly, the day of his death, weird stuff happened, and somehow a guy who should not have been killed just kills himself magically. He didn't kill himself at all. That's an example of a very real conspiracy. The other thing is the lack of media coverage tells you where power lies. If you're an investigative journalist, think of the prizes you can win and the accolades you can get, calling truth to power and showing that some of the richest, most powerful people in the world were pedophiles or abused young, innocent women. Yet, no one has any appetite to go and be an investigative journalist and dig into this story, despite the enormous draw it would have. Why? Because the people who own the mass media companies were also complicit with what Epstein did, and they buried that. And that in itself is a story. So he is the symptom, not the root cause, and he worked in a larger structure, and we don't know what that structure looks like, but this is not a new technique. At the Playboy Mansion, famous people would have sex in the grotto, and they were secretly recorded, and those secret recordings worked their hands into the CIA, and I think it was the 60s. And that's why Playboy got away with a lot of stuff. So this stuff does happen. Now, it's not Illuminati stuff. To this question right here, you see that Illuminati crap is real. This is what's called Tradecraft. It's what spy agencies do. So when you are thinking about recruiting people to work for a spy agency, you have your agents who are loyal people, and they work for that country, and they're super vetted. And the agent's job for human capital, human intelligence, is to go and recruit local assets. And you have 4 dimensions you can recruit them in. It's called mice. So you can recruit them with money, so you bribe people. You can recruit them with ideology, like you're a communist state and they believe in capitalism and they hate communism, so they want to come in. You can attack them with ego. That's the E in mice. And that's where, something's happened, like maybe they got turned down for a promotion or something. Like there was cases in the Soviet Union where prominent scientists were trivialized and passed up, and they still knew a lot of government secrets, and so they got compromised that way. Or you can develop blackmail on them. So, for example, all the time, Israel and the United States, they monitor Iran very, very closely to try to figure out who's gay and who's not gay. And they have a whole beautiful network of all the homosexuals in that country. Why? Because it's a crime in that state. And if a particular government official is having a secret gay relationship, if that was to be publicly revealed, it would destroy his career, probably get him executed. So that's an example of compromise. And there's ways to either passively find it, where it falls in your lap and you use that information, or actively create compromise. For example, there was a Chinese spy recently who was sleeping with a U.S. congressman and absorbing information out of him. I forget the name. I think it was Selwell or something like that. One of these congressmen floating around that's been compromised. Well, Epstein is an example of a classic intelligence operation. You have a lot of wealthy, prominent people. Those prominent people are globalists, and they do business with everybody. If you compromise them and you have leverage against them, then they're probably going to work with you. and give you information on a regular basis, or if they're in a position of policy making, change policy to benefit the will of your country. Russia does this. China does this. A lot of people on the left, for example, believe that there's compromise on Donald Trump in Russia, that while he was there for the Miss Universe pageants and these other things, that there are sex tapes or other such things. Whether they exist or not, it's historically been done by the FSB in Russia. And Chinese do the same thing. We call them Natashas. Yeah, there we go. Eric Swalwell. That was the congressman who got compromised by the Chinese spy.